Yeah, yeah. Have no preferences, and recording is fine to me.
Okay, leader of opposition is here.
Yes, I'm here, but I prefer not to be recorded.
Okay, fine. Deputy of Prime Minister, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I have no preferences. Recording is okay.
Okay. Deputy of Leader Opposition, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, do you give consent to recording and what is the gender?
Yes, I do. I do give consent.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, member of government, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm going to do both speeches and person. I do not consent for recording.
Okay, whip of government, are you here?
Yes, same. I'm doing both speeches.
Oh, okay, fine. And member of opposition. Member of opposition, closing opposition team. Are you here?
Oh yeah, I'm here. So I'm swinging.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, today we are judging in panel. My name is Madin Norlanla and my wing is Reed. And well, you know the motion and you can start. I'll record the time by your first words. Prime Minister.
Do you hear me well?
Yes, I'm here.
Wait a second, please. Okay, the most important problem for racially diverse populations is inequality of opportunities that created by prejudices of the majority of the population of some kind of country. Like we can see that Black people in the United States disproportionately locked up in prisons than they perceived as less competent, even though they may have the same qualification as the white male, for instance. And we have a lot of problems with discrimination, and it's natural for people to perceive someone from the minority or someone who is not looking like themselves as somewhat lesser or less trusted, because we're naturally xenophobic, and we must change it by this mechanism. So we should never record racial or ethnic background, so these prejudices won't be a hold on these people when they're trying to do something within this state. So because when you as a Black resident, for instance, want to apply for a job, some kind of job, you more likely will be discriminated just on the basis of some record that you're Black. And it's not even, it maybe not even intentionally, just you looking at this whole lots of resumes, or the artificial intelligence system does it, and you see this note that it's someone from Nigeria or someone is Black, and you automatically, just because you are not prone to trust such people and you are more confident in white citizens of the United States, for instance, you're rather unconsciously will put these resumes on the background, and you will not consider them on the equally with the resumes from the white population. I will take the POI.
Look, there are still job interviews and still people see your color, your appearance, whether you're Asian or not. How records will solve that?
Yeah, this is important thing, because when you denied remotely, so to say. When you just have a resume that declined, you cannot even argue that it was on racial prejudices. You cannot understand why your resume was denied by this mechanism. But when you have an interview, it's more likely that the employee will have empathy towards you, and that he will be able to see the human under your color of skin, that he will understand that you are competent. Or if you will see that he is just declining your position only on the basis of racial prejudices, you can argue with that. You can understand closely interacting with someone what he's thinking about you or what is the actual problem. But the main problem that when you have this remote system of like records, when you just see these records and only on this basis you make your prejudices, the guy who is discriminated can't even argue and understand what is the problem with him. He cannot get the feedback, and the employee may be not even understanding that he's prejudiced, that he is discriminating against someone, because he is not thinking about it at all. And we think it is a unique mechanism because we eliminating at least this part of discrimination where you cannot see someone, where you just prejudiced on the basis of this record. And why as a government we must care about it, it's quite obvious, because these not citizens but residents rely on us more than anyone else, because they cannot exercise their freedom fully because of this kind of discrimination that exists presently. And moreover, they are not still citizens if you're talking about the residents, but they still pay taxes, they still invest their time and money and resources into developing of this country. They are somehow involved in this governmental structure, and they have influence over our country, and they impact our country. But again, they don't have enough rights as a citizens, and because they're discriminated and have less opportunities than other, like let's say citizens and other residents of our other racial lines of the majority, we say that it is problematic for them, and because of that we must protect particularly these people, because it's how government works. It supports the most the people who need it most. So we provide pensions, welfare, and all different kinds of stuff for people who cannot provide for themselves and who cannot just be sufficient on their own. And on that basis, we must support them and to help them to, at least to some degree, to avoid this barrier that exists for them to achieving their goals, to be to go and get the proper education or to get a proper job. We must eliminate this barrier for them, and it will be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for a fine speech. And okay, thank you very much. Couple seconds. Well, thank you for your fine speech. And for the next speech, I'll call Deputy Prime Minister. You have 7 minutes, and the time will be set from the first words.
Do you hear me well?
Yeah, I hear you well.
Okay, 1 second. I'll take my time. Okay, we do fully agree with the opposition side when they are describing the positive sides of the diversity, and we do fully agree on it. But what we do want to prove here is that we are not eliminating the diversity, but we are just reducing the negative sides of the diversity which might have been created because of the hugely diversified society. So let's begin with the characterization. We do think that there are some negative sides of the diversity. For example, the stereotypes which are engendered during the interaction between the different sides and different representatives of the society, because that's just the basic mechanism how the xenophobia works. Because there is the local and native population who are communicating with each other on a long period of time, but then we have some another representatives of other societies who might have been the who might have another culture and another value preferences and stuff like that. So it means for some kind of hatred, because they are another of us. We are not as similar as they are. So it means that to some harsh kind of communication and interaction, because your values are not always come across. So it means it leads to the vicious circle of poorness, because usually locals tend not to accept the representatives of other societies and other cultures and these people, because they think that they are going to take their places, because they think that they're going to ruin their culture and their social political order. So it means that usually the basic mechanism of perception of the representatives of other society is rather xenophobia than a peaceful one. So it also leads to the psychological pressure on these representatives. So we do think that their living is not as peaceful as the opposition describes. So what this resolution means for these people? Firstly, we do think that it leads to the easing of the ethnical and racial constraints, which leads to the better life for all of them and for those who are hated. Why? We think that here is the clarification which might have helped to understand. Firstly, there are a lot of spheres where these representatives are not accepted. Firstly, that's unemployment, basically. And the problems here begin just on the level of applying, because basically the representatives, for example, of the white race tend, if you are racist, for example, or if you think that a black guy is not qualified, so he's going to take the workplace of your natives and local people. So the problems basically begin just on this level of applying, because you as the employer tend not to take these people who are likely to ruin your culture and who are unqualified and who are going to ruin all the working ethics on your factory and stuff like that. So basically these people don't get the full access to the work, which means that they don't have full ability to earn money and to provide themselves with the better standards of living. Moreover, that's the cases of education, when you are, as the representative, for example, of the minority groups, signing your child to the school, and you are given the prohibition because the teachers and the directors of the kindergartens think that your child don't perceive all the standards of education, and he is worse one than all the white children and stuff like that. So basically your children have no ability to apply to school and get the education. That concerns to the loans, because when you're fulfilling the contract, for example, the workers in the bank tend not to give you the contract, because they think if you are a black guy, it means that you are the source of more violence, so you tend to get in jail, so then you won't pay back all this money, so you're less likely to get the loan, for example, to begin your startup. And basically it concerns your ability to run a business, because if there is less attention to your racial and your ethnic roots, it means that there will be less harsh scrutiny from the government and all the institutions that might have been so scrutiny to your business and stuff like that. So basically it means that this resolution will provide the better life for those people who are hated, which means that they will have an ability to prosper, because they will get all the employment, their children will have an ability to get an education, they will get the loans, which means that they will have better standards of living, and it in and of itself will ruin the stereotype, because mostly they are not based on the reality, but rather on your distorted perception of these members, who are thought to be not as equal and not they're not the owners of your culture and stuff like that. But note that this resolution is not kind of positive discrimination, and it means that it doesn't create the backlashes like hatred because they have taken our workplaces, they don't deserve all of this, that's just the government who created all the preferences for them. No, we think that this resolution doesn't create all of this backlashes, which means that it just brings the equality of abilities. When you, as the representative, for example, of the minority, have the equal rights with all the locals to have an ability to sign the applyment for your work, to get your child an education. So it means that if you are prospering, that's ruining the stereotypes in and of itself, because all people understand that government hasn't, that's not the government who made you prosper, but that's you and your own abilities which made you prosper. And moreover, we think, and my teammate already explained you the principle of dependency, which says that we have to prioritize individuals who cannot exercise their own morals and their freedom of their body independently, but instead they are reliant upon us to do so. And that's so important because these people are paying taxes, they delegate the part of their freedom to the politicians who have to decide and who have to provide there with the better standards of living. But they don't have all the preferences that all the citizens have. They don't have direct links to their state, which means that they're in the condition of uncertainty, which all means that they are in the vulnerable position, and they, on the first place, require the help from the government, and the government has to provide themselves with all this ability because of the principle of dependency, as we do, for example, with the old people, providing them with the social help and stuff like that. So we do think that it basically will lead to all of these positive influences without any backlashes which are engendered by the positive discrimination. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your fine speech and a couple of seconds.
Hello.
Yeah, can you wait a little bit? Can you wait a little bit?
What? I'm going to discuss 2 points. First one, diversity and ethnics in the workplace strives to make people of all socio-economic backgrounds feel comfortable working within the organization. It further promotes equal opportunities among all employees or prospective employees to be hired and promoted based on merit, not race, gender, or creed. A small organization diversity program maintains non-discrimination standard non-discrimination standards. The main contribution to knowing the ethnic background or racial background will be the positioning of knowledge with regard to diversity and ethnical issues within the organization, as well as the behavior of the people. The framework will highlight the strategies on how diversity and ethnics are perceived at different levels in an organization and how employees and managers view differ. When societal diversity and ethnics are unmanaged in an organization, there will be obstacle in achieving organizational predetermined goals, which will lead to poor organizational performance. Will be addressing the government is that hiding, not recording the ethnic and racial background in the place of residency won't solve racism or reduce it, because for some people it's their physical it's in their physical characteristics. Like Chinese people, like we can say in Corona, some of them are have been in the United States or UK for what they are the 5th or fourth generation, but they were still treated with racism and brutality. There is also Muslims. You have hijabi female Muslims. You know, perhaps writing their ethnic and racial background will will give them the trouble of going to let's say a work interview and being and faced by a racist interviewer who's and being treated like in a non-humane way. Like if they already see they didn't want a Muslim hijabi, they are not gonna accept it in a very decent way, without putting them in a non-suitable situation. And also all ethnic and racial backgrounds should be accepted, and the way to reduce racism is not by making people not their ethnic background or racial. People should be educated well and should be taught that equality should be given to all humans, no matter of color, race, ethnic beliefs, or whatever it is. You're not gonna solve racism by that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your speech. And a couple of seconds, government, can you wait?
Closing government, could you please confirm that you consented to be recorded? I didn't hear that.
Nope, I didn't.
Again, you're okay with that or not? Sorry.
No, no, no.
For a fine speech, and for the next speech, I'll call the member of opposition. You have 7 minutes. Member of opposition, are you here?
I forgot to unmute myself. Okay, good. Sorry. Okay, firstly, we need to understand what governments we're talking about. First of all, governments that are have a lot of races and ethnicities, they probably have strong policies and strong agenda about equality, about like being minority friendly, stuff like that, and like positive discrimination and all of that. So why is it important for government is to prevent conflicts and riots that we're seeing in status quo, for example, in the US, prevent some kind of wars and crises where a lot of people get hurt and stuff like that. So the government doesn't want to get a lot of conflicts because it will mess up their ratings and it will be really bad for them. So probably in we're talking about the kind of government that will not use this data to manipulate with people and to discriminate on this basis. So people. So why is it likely that people like about discrimination, why government doesn't change anything about discrimination in those countries? First of all, people are not discriminating other people on basis what they see in on the basis of the statistics. They don't watch the statistics at all. Probably they watch some mass media and stuff like that. So mass media will still continue to show all those black people like robbing stuff, doing bad things and killing people. So it is the problem of mass media and representation of black people in media. So this causes discrimination, and probably we cannot change that because there are like a lot of racist media, right-wing media that probably will not change, and the government doesn't show us how it will change. Yeah. So yeah. No. Okay, so all right, so next we will talk about our extension and why it is much more important to have this data. So first of all, we have to understand that discrimination in status quo is not actually that big of an issue, because in the countries such as the US, we don't have like systemic racism and systemic some kind of systemic racism. First of all, because it's not it's not in the law, so you cannot discriminate anyone on the basis of law. Second is that racial discrimination in US is not the case because there are public shaming, cancel culture, people are afraid to be racist, and this is why companies are so proud of their woman-man ratio, racial diversity and stuff like that. So it's not the case. So we understand, we agree that there are some individuals that are racist, but probably we are not changing them because they're still watching all those radical right medias, and we cannot actually affect them. So what do we understand on what do we understand in this case is that we cannot still change the stereotypes about people because they are ingrained in the society, in the people that are racist. So people that are racist will still see the color of skin or Asian appearance of people and probably will discriminate on that basis, even if they cannot see cannot see that you're black in the resume. Probably the opening government actually misrepresents the actual process of applying to the job. You are not saying that you are a black person if you're applying to the job. It's not required in any company to do that. Moreover, still there are maybe some kind of discrimination when you see, for example, name that is looks like Russian name or looks like Indian name. Probably you will also have second guesses about that on your stereotypes. Yeah. So moreover, what is important here is that why we actually need those stats. Why is it important? Because we have to have the positive discrimination, and why is positive discrimination is so important? Because there are systemic poorness that we have in status quo. When you are born in poor family and you're going to public school that educates you really bad, and you cannot pass SATs, you cannot pass exams good, you get to the bad university, or you drop out of the university, or you're not applying at all. In this case, you are poor, and you probably ends up either being really poor or mobbing or being criminal and stuff like that. This is the real issue that we have to deal with. So this is this systemic poorness is not dependent on the people that are systemically poor. That's why government have to support them. How we can support them? We can provide positive discrimination and give those people, build them good schools, provide them some help and stuff like that. We cannot do that if we don't have data. Second thing is statistics, crime, death, wealth statistics. It's very important to see how many people suffer from, for example, how many black people in America suffer from the crime, and how many, for example, black women suffering from the crime and stuff like that. So in this case, government can allocate, for example, policies and police departments in the right place and prioritize, for example, Detroit over some other better places where crime is really low. It's very important for those people because they're really vulnerable and they cannot do it by themselves because they're systemically poor, and a lot of people cannot just survive if they're not committing crime. Okay, OG.
Look, if they will be applied to their jobs and their children will get an education, the stereotypes will vanish, actually.
I agree, but
stereotypes are not in the reality.
Thank you. I agree with that. But on our side of the house, you actually can see the positive discrimination and cases where black people actually get education. On your side of the house, you cannot do that because you cannot. You don't know who's the who suffers on what basis, whether it's racial background, whether it's an ethnic background, whether it's other things. In these cases, you cannot actually allocate funds and say, okay, this is a racial problem, we have to deal with that. So probably on your side of the house, you cannot do it really good because you don't know the statistics and you cannot actually operate on that and build programs and stuff like that. So yeah, so on our side of the house, we can see that schools get ethnically diverse, racially diverse, and companies can show off their data that they have a lot of black people, a lot of women, a lot of Russians, Kazakhs, and stuff like that, and say, oh, see, we are cool. And it another stimulus for them to actually hire people that are black, white, Asian, whatsoever. Thank you. Happy to oppose.
Well, thank you very much for a fine speech. And please, can you turn off your microphone?
Okay. Also, government, please, can you like repeat your consent?
No, sorry.
Position. You have 7 minutes and you can start.
Okay, closing government says that look, if we will like withdraw the affirmative action, probably like black people and minorities will have some motivation to work. Probably it's not the case, because I already showed you in my extension how exactly they cannot work better, because it's systemic poorness that they have, poorness that they inherited from their parents, and so on and so forth. So we see that even if they work hard, they cannot, they probably will not achieve that, because the opportunities are like really different, really differ from the like majority of white people. So in this case, we understand that work hard stuff probably doesn't work on the closing government side. Also, what is important here is that we are not saying that we will allocate funds and create policies only on the basis of the on race and ethnicity. First of all, we will still have data who is poor and who is not, because we do, like, we're the government. And secondly, like we have to like admit that majority of poor people is minorities. Because of the historical discrimination where poorness was inherited, people suffered from the segregation, and because of that, they are poor, and they inherited their poorness from their ancestors and stuff like that. So having racial thoughts, having racial quotas, and supporting those people is very important. So because it's so because it's inherited, we have to support them, and we will not like say that okay, all people are they're all equal. We cannot say that like white people and black people are like on the same have the same opportunities. We cannot claim that, because it actually does not work in the real world. So so let's compare our extension to what open and opposition have. So probably it is very good to have diversity in organizations and stuff like that, but we have to understand that they're claiming that like we will have a lot of productivity and efficiency and stuff like that, but they're not tying it exactly to the like whether the people will suffer or whether the people will have like more benefits to them. So on our side of the house, we're showing you how like exactly people get benefit. Those minority people that are really vulnerable, that really need help, get benefit, because we have statistics, because we know where they live and whether they're poor or not. We can understand whether we need to allocate funds, create quotas, or and do stuff. So in these cases, we can actually make their life better, but they're never showing us opposition side, or open opposition side, whether like all those productivities of companies and efficiency is like providing benefits for the minorities. So this is why we're winning over open opposition. So comparing to the open government. So it is really important to have this clash like about whether where we get in diversity and where we're having successful minorities. So on side of the opening government, there are no quotas for people of color, and also on closing government, there are no quotas for people of color, less fortunate people of color, probably that are from ghettos, that suffer from classism. Disproportionately more black people suffer from crimes, and disproportionately more black people are poor. And in this case, we see that those inherited poorness is really it's a big suffer for the black people. In this case, they are unable to provide this this target help for the ethnic minorities. So so in this case, we see that the companies cannot provide quotas and cannot actually show off that they have a lot of black people because they don't have a record. So in this case, probably it will be less of a motivation for companies to be racially diverse, for the companies to be really positive in terms of in terms of minorities and stuff like that. So in this case, we see that a lot of really less people from the minorities will be successful. Why is it bad? Because when we don't have successful people from minorities, probably we cannot show them on mass media. We cannot show them on BBC and break the stereotype that all black people are poor and criminals. So in this case, we have to do something about that, and we cannot. When we ignore, when we don't notice that, when we're not having the data about how many black people are poor, how many black people are suffering from are suffering in the prisons, we cannot make the differences, because no one cares about that. We care about only how many you get, how many you earn in a month. So in this case, we cannot do something about it. Okay, closing government, your PY.
Yeah. So like your burden is to prove why is it a better why is race a better analytical category than the line of poverty or other like quantifiable monetary lines, which can be equally effective for other people as well, and for better allocation of resources.
Okay, we agree that actually there are like white people in ghetto that also suffer from the poorness. But we also have to acknowledge that we are not basing our allocations and our quotas on race. We're basing them on several factors like race, how many you get a month, what is your housing, where you live, and stuff like that. All of this includes. All of this goes to our statistics. So in this case, when you're excluding this from the statistics, the race factor, you probably are you're not noticing the racial problems that people have, and you're not noticing when like companies don't have enough racial diversities, and if you're not noticing that, companies don't have motivation to hire those people. Also, like public schools, they also don't have motivation to have enough, to have good racial diversity and stuff like that. So in this case, you're closing a lot of those doors for minorities and people who are suffer from historical discrimination, from inherited poorness. So in this case, it's really bad for those minorities, and they will suffer disproportionately more if we don't include the racial factor. So on our side of the house, we're showing you how quotas are good for people. And closing government says that a lot of white people will be pissed that black people get quotas, but we have to understand that this motion is not about white people and whether they are pissed. Those people that say that, oh, it's not fair to provide quotas for them, they probably privileged, and they have a lot of benefits, and they have a lot of opportunities compared to those that we are giving quotas to. So in this case, those people that we are giving quotas to are much more important than these people that actually have a lot of privilege in their life. Thank you. Happy to oppose.
Okay, thank you for a fine speech. And now we'll start and after 15 or 20 minutes, I'll call you back to get a feedback.